Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I never thought my marriage would unravel the way it did. For most of my 20s, I believed I had it all figured out. A stable job, a modest but comfortable home, and a wife I thought I could trust. My name is Daniel Hart, and I grew up in a small Ohio town called Maplewood. My parents worked hard. My dad was a mechanic, my mom a nurse, and they drilled into me the values of honesty, loyalty, and family. I carried those values into my marriage with Claire. Claire and I met in college. She was outgoing, magnetic, the kind of person who made a room brighter just by being in it. I was more reserved, practical, the type of guy who preferred a quiet evening with close friends to a crowded party. Somehow, we balanced each other out. By the time we graduated, we were engaged. A year later, married. At first, life was good. We both had stable jobs. She worked as a marketing consultant. I landed a position as an IT analyst. We bought a small house in Maplewood, not far from where I grew up. We had 2 kids within 4 years, Ethan and Lily. They became the center of my world. But if I'm being honest, Claire and I had cracks in our marriage from the start. She craved excitement. She liked the rush of new experiences, new faces, and new thrills. I thought I could keep up, but I couldn't. Over time, our differences became sharper. When we stumbled into this swinging lifestyle through some of her friends, I convinced myself it was a way to keep her happy without losing her. For a while, it worked. Or at least I told myself it did. But deep down, I hated it. The constant sharing of intimacy. The idea that my wife was building connections with other men while I watched from the sidelines. It ate away at me. After a few years, I told her I was done. That's when things truly fell apart. It started small. Claire grew distant, irritated by my refusal to keep up with her lifestyle. She began going out more, always with excuses. Girls' night, work dinner, just need some air. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe she'd honor the boundary I set. But I noticed changes. The way she'd silence her phone when I walked into the room. The way she came home smelling of cologne that wasn't mine. The late nights turning into early mornings. I confronted her once, trying to stay calm. "Claire, are you seeing someone behind my back?" She laughed too quickly. "Daniel, you're paranoid. Just because you've turned boring doesn't mean I have." Her words stung. I let it slide. I didn't want to believe it. But then the real blow came 6 months before our divorce, when Ethan, our oldest, was diagnosed with a life-threatening autoimmune condition. Overnight, our world shifted. He needed hospital visits, medications, constant monitoring. I tried to step up, balancing work, bills, and the kids' needs. Claire, on the other hand, cracked under the pressure. She started drinking heavily. At first, a glass of wine in the evening, then bottles disappearing from the cabinet. She'd stumble home drunk with the kids in her care. Once I came home early and found her passed out on the couch while Lily, only 4 at the time, was trying to make herself a bowl of cereal for dinner. That night I knew something had to change. I packed a few bags, buckled Ethan and Lily into the back seat, and drove them to my parents' house. When I told Claire I was leaving for a while, she didn't even argue. She just waved me off with a bitter, "Fine, do whatever you want." For 2 weeks, I stayed with my parents, focusing on the kids and their routines. It was the most peace I'd felt in months. But then came a message that changed everything. It was from Amy, Claire's best friend since high school. "Daniel, I think you need to know what's been going on. Claire told us some things at girls' night. I can't sit on this anymore." I called her immediately. Amy's voice was low, hesitant. She's been bragging about sleeping with different guys every night. She drinks when she's got the kids. Daniel, she even admitted to leaving Ethan and Lily home alone one night so she could meet some guy at a bar. I couldn't keep quiet anymore. My stomach dropped. "You're serious?" "I wish I wasn't." She also told us she plans to file for divorce once she drains more money from you. She said, and I quote, "Why rush when I can live rent-free and still spend his cash?" I sat there in silence, gripping the phone. Every suspicion I'd had was suddenly confirmed in the ugliest way possible. Amy's voice broke. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I know this isn't easy to hear." I took a breath. Thank you, Amy. You just gave me what I needed to end this once and for all. I moved back into the house the next day. I wasn't going to let her play me from a distance. When I walked in and dropped my bag on the bed, Claire stormed into the room. "What the hell are you doing here?" she snapped. "This is my house too," I said evenly. "I'm not leaving my kids here alone with you anymore." Her face twisted. "Get out, Daniel, I mean it. I'll call the cops if I have to." "Go ahead," I muttered, keeping my phone recording the whole exchange from my pocket. She lunged for her phone, dialing 911. "Yes, I'd like to report domestic violence," she said, her voice suddenly trembling with fake fear. Minutes later, red and blue lights flashed outside. 2 officers entered, one immediately cuffing me while Claire stood behind them with wide, fake, tearful eyes. "This man's been abusive," she sobbed. But when the detective pulled me aside, I quietly said, "I have the whole thing recorded." "She's lying." I played the audio. The detective's expression shifted. Within an hour, Claire was the one in handcuffs sitting in the back of the squad car. That was the night everything began to shift in my favor. Claire wasn't allowed back in the house for a week. She crashed at Amy's place, but instead of reflecting, she went on a spree. New laptop, new iPhone, designer clothes. She drained our joint account without hesitation. When I saw the balance, I felt sick. The next morning, I went to the bank. I withdrew everything left in our savings, closed our joint credit cards, and transferred my investment accounts into my name only. When Claire found out, she blew up my phone with messages. "You bastard. How dare you cut me off? You'll regret this. I swear to God, Daniel, you'll pay for what you've done to me." But the more she raged, the clearer it became. She wasn't in control anymore. A few days later, Amy called me again. "Daniel, she's not doing well. She told me she's thinking of ending her life." I froze. As much as I hated her, I didn't want the mother of my kids dead. Amy convinced her to check into an inpatient mental health facility. Surprisingly, Claire agreed. Maybe she knew she needed help, or maybe she wanted pity. Either way, it worked in my favor. It was proof she was unstable and unfit to care for the kids alone. 2 weeks later, the divorce hearing began. Claire walked in looking polished, sober, and ready to perform. On the stand, she cried. She told the judge I was abusive, controlling, and that my cruelty had driven her to a mental hospital. She was convincing. For a moment, I feared the judge might believe her. But then it was my turn. My attorney presented the recordings, the bank records, the police report. Piece by piece, her story fell apart. The final blow came when Amy took the stand. Amy's voice was steady, her eyes locked on Claire. I watched her spiral. I watched her leave her kids alone so she could drink and hook up with strangers. She bragged about it. I begged her to stop, but she wouldn't. Daniel isn't perfect, but he's the only stable parent those kids have. Claire sat frozen, her mouth half open, her attorney flipping through notes like a drowning man grasping for air. When the dust settled, the judge ruled in my favor. I was granted sole custody. Claire was restricted to supervised visitation until she completed rehab and counseling. I kept the house. I kept my investments. I got to protect my children. It's been 5 years since that day in court. Claire eventually sobered up. She still sees Ethan and Lily, but only within the limits of the visitation schedule. As for me, I finally have peace. My kids are thriving. Ethan's health has stabilized with treatment. Lily is growing into a smart, confident girl. And me? I no longer wake up wondering what lie will unravel my life today. Sometimes late at night I think back to the man I was. The man who thought swinging would save his marriage. The man who kept forgiving the unforgivable. I don't recognize him anymore. What I do know is this: walking away saved my kids and saved myself. And I'll never apologize for that. I never thought the person who could hurt me the most would be the one I trusted above everyone else. My name is Marcus Reynolds. I'm 34 years old, a project manager for a mid-sized software company in Columbus, Ohio. For the last 10 years, I've been married to Claire. If you asked anyone who knew us, they'd tell you we were the kind of couple people envied, always smiling at each other in public, raising our daughter together, taking family trips whenever work allowed. But like every relationship, what you see on the outside doesn't always mirror what happens when the doors are shut. Claire and I met in college. She was studying education. I was deep in business management courses. What drew me to her first was her laugh. It was bright, unfiltered, the kind that filled a room. She made me feel lighter in a way I hadn't felt before. We married young, maybe too young. I was 24, she was 22. Our daughter Lily was born 4 years later. By then I was climbing corporate ladders, working late, traveling to client sites. Claire stayed home at first, then picked up teaching part-time when Lily started preschool. If I'm honest, the cracks started small. I was often exhausted from work and she seemed restless, like the suburban routine wasn't enough. I chalked it up to growing pains. Marriage isn't easy. At least that's what everyone says. Things started to unravel when Lily got sick. Last winter she was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disorder. Suddenly our lives were hospital visits, specialists, bills stacking up faster than I could manage. Claire tried to hold herself together, but I could see her breaking under the pressure. She started drinking more. Just to take the edge off, she'd say. But I knew it wasn't helping. I thought the stress was pulling us apart. I didn't realize she had already started looking for comfort somewhere else. It was a Tuesday night when I first noticed something wasn't right. Claire said she was going to grab groceries around 7 p.m. I was home with Lily, who had finally dozed off after a long coughing spell. When Claire came back 2 hours later, she didn't have any groceries. "Where's the food?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, God, I'm such an idiot. I got caught up talking to Jessica at the store. We must have chatted for forever. I didn't even realize how late it was." She laughed it off, but her cheeks were flushed, and she couldn't quite look at me. It didn't sit right. Jessica was one of her co-workers, but I'd never known them to hang out outside of work. That night when she was in the shower, I checked her phone. It was locked with a new passcode. Claire had never locked her phone before. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I waited. I started paying attention to her schedule, her moods. Every Thursday night she had grading sessions with co-workers. Every Saturday morning she suddenly wanted to go for a run alone. One night when she fell asleep on the couch, I finally managed to unlock her phone using Lily's birthday. What I saw nearly made me vomit. 13 different men. Not one, not two, 13. Some messages were explicit, others more subtle, but they all had the same undertone. Intimacy, betrayal, the kind of words that had once been meant only for me. She wasn't just unfaithful, she was reckless. Meeting them in hotels, in cars, sometimes even in our own house when I was away for work. I remember sitting there staring at the screen, my chest pounding so hard I thought I was going to black out. When she stirred awake, I dropped the phone and pretended I was asleep. But inside, something in me broke permanently. The breaking point, I tried to confront her 2 days later. "Claire, we need to talk," I said one morning as she sipped her coffee. "About what?" She didn't even look up. "I know," I said flatly. "I know about the messages about the men." The cup froze halfway to her lips. For a long moment she didn't move. Then she set it down and stared at me, eyes cold and unreadable. "You went through my phone? That's what you're worried about?" My voice cracked. "You've been sleeping with half the city while your daughter is fighting for her life? And you're mad I looked at your phone?" Her face twisted in something between shame and defiance. "You don't understand what it's been like, Marcus. You're never here. I'm drowning, and you're always at work, always gone. I needed someone." 13 someones? I snapped. She flinched, then stood up, pacing the kitchen. "You think I'm proud of it? You think I planned this? I was lonely. I was angry. I was—" "Stop." My voice was low, shaking. "Don't you dare make this about me." That was the day something died in me. I thought the betrayal was the worst of it. I thought the late-night texts, the lies, the strangers in my bed would haunt me forever. But the real horror came later. A month after the confrontation, I was driving Lily to one of her specialist appointments. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. "Is this Marcus Reynolds?" a man's voice asked. "Yes. This is Detective Walsh with CPD. I need you to come down to the station. It concerns your wife." My heart stopped. What happened? "She was arrested this morning. Attempted abduction." The words didn't make sense. Abduction? Claire? What are you talking about? When I arrived at the station, the story unfolded like some nightmare I couldn't wake from. Claire had been caught in a supermarket parking lot trying to snatch another woman's baby. Witnesses said she picked up the carrier and tried to walk off. When the father confronted her, She pepper-sprayed him and screamed that he was the kidnapper. The police found her disoriented, reeking of vodka. She claimed she thought the child was Lily. When I went to see her in holding, she looked hollow, almost unrecognizable. "They took her from me," she sobbed when she saw me. "They took Lily. I was just trying to get her back." I didn't know if she was drunk, delusional, or both. All I knew was that this wasn't my wife anymore. The weeks that followed were chaos. CPS got involved, questioning whether Lily was safe in our home. I had to hire a lawyer, pull every ounce of proof I could that I was the stable parent. Claire was ordered into rehab, then a psychiatric evaluation. At night, I lay awake replaying everything. Her affairs, the drinking, the lies, the kidnapping attempt. I realized I had been blind for years, making excuses for the red flags because I wanted so badly to believe in the life we had built. The worst part? Even after everything, a piece of me still loved her. Or maybe I just loved who she used to be. Lily is my only focus now. She needs stability, safety, a parent who won't collapse under pressure. I filed for divorce last month. Claire's lawyer is pushing for supervised visitation, but I don't know if I can ever trust her with our daughter again. Not after what she tried to do. People always talk about monsters in dark alleys, strangers lurking with bad intentions. But my monster wore a wedding ring and slept beside me for a decade. And the scariest part is how easily love can disguise itself as safety, until the mask slips. I never thought my marriage would end in horror. For years, I believed Sophie and I were the couple people envied. We had the kind of life our friends would describe as stable. A modest home in the suburbs outside Seattle, steady careers, a circle of friends we'd built together. Even a goofy Labrador named Milo who seemed to complete the picture. I was 31, an engineer for a logistics firm. Sophie was 29, working in marketing for a mid-sized tech company downtown. We'd been married 6 years. Not without arguments, sure, but nothing that would make you think the foundation was crumbling. But I guess foundations rot slowly, until one day you realize the whole house is sinking. It started with little things. Sophie had always been an open book type. The kind of person who left her phone on the counter while she showered, never worried if I glanced at it. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, that changed. She started carrying it everywhere. She'd tilt the screen away when I walked by, lock it the second she was done. I brushed it off at first. Work was stressful for both of us, and I figured maybe she just needed some privacy. But then came the late nights. Client dinners, networking events, last-minute meetings. One Tuesday, she walked in at nearly midnight, the smell of wine heavy on her breath. I was sitting at the kitchen table, still awake. "You're late," I said, trying not to sound accusatory. She dropped her purse by the door. "Work ran long, I told you. You said you'd be home by 9. Her jaw tightened. "Ethan, not everything is on a schedule. You of all people should know that." I didn't push further, but the pit in my stomach grew heavier. The next few weeks only deepened the unease. Sophie was glued to her phone, giggling at texts she wouldn't show me. Our conversations turned shallow, like we were just roommates coordinating grocery lists. Then one Saturday morning while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the counter. The name lit up. Damian Cole. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. Just the way she snatched it up when she came out of the bathroom told me everything. Suspicion is like a sickness. It eats at you until you're either proven wrong or proven right. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, but my gut kept screaming. So one Friday when she said she had a late work dinner, I decided to follow her. I parked a few blocks from her office and waited. Sure enough, around 7 p.m., Sophie walked out, not toward the garage where she usually parked, but across the street to a sleek black sedan idling under a streetlight. The driver stepped out to open the door for her. He was older than I expected. Mid-40s, sharp suit, the kind of confidence that fills a room before the man even speaks. Sophie kissed him on the cheek before sliding inside. My chest clenched so hard I thought I might black out. They drove to a quiet restaurant on the water. I sat across the street in my car, hands gripping the wheel until my knuckles went white, watching them laugh over candlelight like it was a goddamn date scene from a movie. That was the night I knew for certain. When she got home later, I was sitting in the dark living room. "How was the client dinner?" I asked, my voice low. She froze, keys still in her hand. "It was fine. Why? Who's Damien? Her face drained of color. She tried to recover, stammering, He's just a colleague. I saw you, at the restaurant, laughing, touching his hand. Don't lie to me, Sophie. Her eyes welled with tears, but not the kind of tears that begged forgiveness. They were defensive, angry. You don't get it, Ethan. You're always working, always tired. Damien. He listens to me. He makes me feel alive. I've been drowning here, invisible. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to break every fragile piece of furniture in that room. Instead, I whispered, So your solution was to crawl into someone else's bed? She looked down, silent, and in that silence I knew. Our marriage was dead. Divorce would have been painful but clean. Unfortunately, Sophie's lover wasn't just a fling. Damien Cole was a shadow that refused to leave. At first it was subtle. A car parked too long across the street. A man's silhouette in the grocery store gone when I looked again. One evening I came home to find cigarette butts scattered near the garage. Neither Sophie nor I smoked. I confronted her. Does Damien know where we live? I demanded. She hesitated. I might have mentioned it. Mentioned it? Or did you bring him here? Her silence told me everything. You let him into our home? Her voice cracked. It wasn't like that. He just wanted to see where I lived. He cares about me. Cares? I snapped. He's stalking us. He's circling the house at night. That's not caring. That's obsession. For the first time, I saw fear flicker across her face. But she didn't leave him. 2 weeks later at 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of the back door rattling. My heart pounded. I grabbed the baseball bat by the bed and crept to the kitchen. The handle shook violently, like someone trying to force their way in. Who's there? I shouted, voice trembling. The rattling stopped. Silence. Then a low voice, chillingly calm, drifted through the door. She doesn't love you anymore, Ethan. Let her go, before I make you. My blood ran cold. It was Damien. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. When I told Sophie, she shook her head. Damien would never do something like that. You're just paranoid. Paranoid. That word haunted me. Because paranoia doesn't leave notes under your windshield wiper. She's mine now. I filed for divorce. Sophie moved out, taking Milo with her. I thought cutting ties would end it. It didn't. Damien escalated, blocked number calls in the middle of the night. Heavy breathing before a click. Voicemails whispering, You'll never keep her away from me. I'd walk out to my car and find footprints in the dew on the hood. Once, I woke to the sound of my name whispered outside the bedroom window. The police filed reports but offered little else. Restraining orders don't stop men like him, one officer muttered. And he was right. The night it came to a head, I was home alone. The divorce had finalized a week earlier. Sophie was gone for good, though sometimes I caught myself listening for her footsteps. Around midnight, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Look outside. My throat went dry. Slowly, I pulled back the curtain. Damien stood across the street under the lamppost, smiling. Not rushing, not hiding, just smiling, like he had all the time in the world. Another text. She told me everything. You don't deserve to breathe the same air she does. I locked every door, every window, my hands shaking. Called 911. But by the time the cops arrived, he was gone. Gone, but not gone. Because after that night, the texts kept coming. The voicemails, the blocked calls. Even now, 10 years later, living across the country with a new wife and a new life, I still freeze when my phone rings from an unknown number. Because I know Damien Cole is still out there, watching, waiting. And one day I fear he'll step out of the shadows again. I never imagined the word forever could unravel so fast. My name is Adrian Walker, I'm 34, and if you asked anyone who knew me a few years ago, they'd have said I was the kind of guy who had his life together. I had a steady job, a wife I adored, 2 kids, a decent home on the quieter side of Lexington, Kentucky. On the surface, everything looked solid. But the truth? My life was cracking long before anyone could see it. I grew up in a working-class family. My dad was a truck driver, always on the road, and my mom worked double shifts as a nurse. They were tough people, but loving in their own way. They taught me 2 things. Work hard and don't run from responsibility. That stuck with me. That's probably why I fell so hard for Samantha. She was nothing like me. Where I was quiet, she was loud. Where I thought twice, she jumped without looking. I met her at 25, at a mutual friend's cookout. She was the kind of woman who could walk into a crowded room and somehow make it feel like she was the center of it. When she laughed at something dumb I said about burning hot dogs, I swear it felt like the ground shifted under me. Everyone told me she was a wild card. My best friend Caleb warned me early on. Man, Sam's fun, but she doesn't do settled. You're the steady type. She'll get bored. I brushed him off. You don't know her like I do. We got married less than 2 years later. A courthouse wedding, a reception at a rented hall with string lights and cheap beer. It wasn't glamorous, but I thought it was perfect. We moved into a small 2-bedroom starter house with a cracked driveway and peeling shutters. It didn't matter. We were building a life. When our son, Eli, was born, I thought we'd finally hit that stride couples talk about. The moment when everything falls into place. Then our daughter, Maya, followed 3 years later. I was exhausted, sure, but happy. I woke up every morning knowing exactly who I was living for. But Samantha, she changed. At first I thought it was just stress. 2 kids, bills piling up, my long hours at the accounting firm. She complained that I wasn't fun anymore, that I only cared about work and responsibility. I brushed it off, figuring it was just a phase. But then Eli got sick. He was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disorder when he was 6. The kind of diagnosis that hits you like a freight train. Endless doctor visits, medication schedules, nights where we barely slept because we were checking his breathing. I threw myself into being strong for him. Samantha didn't. She started drinking more. A glass of wine after work turned into half a bottle. She'd go out with friends on weekends and stumble in at 2 a.m., reeking of smoke and perfume that wasn't hers. I'd ask questions and she'd snap. Don't start, Adrian. You think you got it all figured out just because you work late and come home with your neat little paycheck? You have no idea what it's like being trapped here all day. That word, trapped, stuck in my head. She wasn't talking about Eli's illness or the stress. She was talking about us. I tried to rationalize it. I told myself she was overwhelmed, that she needed space. I convinced myself it wasn't what it looked like. But deep down I knew. It started with her phone. Little things, like her tilting the screen away when she texted, or how she suddenly put a passcode on it when before she never cared. One night she fell asleep on the couch, her phone buzzing on the coffee table. My chest tightened. I told myself not to look, that I'd respect her privacy, but my hands had a mind of their own. The screen lit up with a message. Can't stop thinking about last night. My stomach dropped. The number wasn't saved under a name, just digits. My hands shook as I scrolled back. The thread was full of flirty texts, late-night confessions, and one message that burned into my memory forever. When are you leaving him? I sat there frozen, staring at the words until my vision blurred. My whole body went cold. I didn't confront her right away. Part of me wanted to deny it, to believe it was a mistake, maybe even some cruel prank. But a week later, I got my confirmation. Samantha told me she was going out with her friend Heather. Something in her tone was off. Too casual. I told Caleb, who had never trusted her, and he gave me a look I'll never forget. Man, you already know. Stop waiting for her to confess. You want the truth? Follow her. I hated the idea. I didn't want to be that guy. But desperation makes you do things you swore you'd never do. That Saturday night after she left, I got in my car and followed from a distance. She didn't go to Heather's. She didn't even go to a bar. She pulled into the parking lot of a cheap motel off the highway. I parked far enough away to watch as she got out, smoothed her dress, and met a man who stepped out of a black truck. He was taller than me, broader, with that smug kind of confidence you see in guys who know their trouble. She ran into his arms like a teenager. They kissed, and I swear I felt something tear inside me. I sat there for nearly an hour, numb, watching the neon vacancy sign flicker, waiting for her to come out. When she finally did, her hair was messy, her makeup smudged, and she was laughing. Laughing like she hadn't in years. With him, not me. When she came home that night, I was sitting in the kitchen with the lights off. She jumped when she saw me. Jesus, Adrian, you scared me. What are you doing up? I just looked at her. Who is he? Her face drained of color. She opened her mouth, closed it, then forced a laugh. What are you talking about? Don't lie to me, Sam, I followed you. The silence that followed was worse than any words. She knew. I knew. There was no taking it back. Finally, she whispered, "His name's Tyler." I felt like my chest was caving in. How long? Almost a year. A year, while I was working double shifts to pay medical bills, while I was sitting in hospital rooms with our son. She was sneaking off to motels with another man. I slammed my fist on the table, making her flinch. You destroyed this family for him? Her eyes narrowed, and suddenly she wasn't guilty. She was angry. Don't you dare put this all on me. You checked out a long time ago, Adrian. You buried yourself in work and bills and being the responsible one, and you left me alone. Tyler makes me feel alive again. Alive. That word twisted like a knife. I wish I could say I threw her out that night, but I didn't. Part of me still loved her. Part of me clung to the hope that we could fix it. For Eli, for Maya. We tried counseling. It didn't work. She went through the motions, but her heart wasn't there. And then things turned darker. One night I came home early from work and found Eli crying in his room. "Mommy's with her friend again," he said, his little voice trembling. "She forgot to give me my medicine." That was the breaking point. My son's health wasn't negotiable. I confronted her again, this time with no hesitation. "You're done, Sam. I want you out tomorrow." She sneered. "You think you can just kick me out? This is my house too. And don't forget, I can take the kids." That threat chilled me to my core. She wasn't just reckless. She was dangerous. A week later, I came home from work to find the house trashed. Plates shattered, drawers yanked open, furniture overturned. And standing in the middle of it was Tyler. He was drunk, shirt half unbuttoned, reeking of beer. "She told me you'd be at work," he slurred. "Get the hell out of my house." He laughed. "Your house? Buddy, she's done with you. She's mine now." Before I could respond, Samantha came stumbling in from the kitchen, also drunk. "Adrian, don't make this worse. Just leave us alone." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. In my own home? With my kids here? That's when Tyler lunged. He shoved me hard, sending me crashing into the wall. My vision blurred, but I heard Caleb's voice in my head. "Stop waiting for her to confess. You already know." I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the back door. I didn't swing it, but I held it between us, my voice shaking. "Get out." Tyler sneered, but something in my eyes must have registered because he pulled Samantha by the arm and staggered out. I filed for divorce the next morning. The custody battle was brutal. Samantha painted me as controlling, cold, neglectful. But the evidence, the drinking, the affair, the neglect of Eli's medical care, was on my side. In the end, I got primary custody. Samantha spiraled further after Tyler dumped her. Last I heard, she moved back in with her parents out of state. I haven't seen her in over a year. The kids are adjusting. It's not easy. Eli still asks about his mom sometimes, and I never know what to say. But we're healing. Slowly. Some nights, though, when the house is quiet, I sit in the dark and replay it all. The motel parking lot, the text messages, the laughter that wasn't for me. And I wonder how love can turn into something so cruel. I was 32 when I found out my wife was cheating on me. To be fair, it wasn't like a lightning strike of discovery. It wasn't some movie-like moment where I walked in and caught her in bed with someone else. It was slow, subtle, a creeping suspicion that grew over time until it wrapped around my throat so tightly that I couldn't breathe without choking on it. My wife's name is Melissa, though most people call her Mel. We'd been married for 7 years, together for almost 10. She was the kind of woman who could light up a room with her smile. Long chestnut hair, these deep hazel eyes that shifted color depending on the light, and this quick wit that used to leave me laughing so hard I couldn't catch my breath. We met back in college at a small university in Dayton, Ohio. I was studying business. She was in graphic design. She'd been sketching in a coffee shop when I asked if I could borrow her pencil. I didn't need it. I just wanted to talk to her. That one moment turned into an entire night of conversation. By the time the baristas were sweeping the floors and locking up, I knew I'd met the person I wanted to marry. And for years, it really was good. Better than good. She was my best friend. my partner, my safe place. But things changed. Slowly, in ways I almost didn't notice until it was too late. She started staying late at work more often. She'd smile at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. There was a distance in her eyes during dinner, like her body was sitting across from me, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. I told myself it was stress, that maybe I was imagining things, that I was paranoid. But deep down, I knew. One night, about 6 months before everything came crashing down, I confronted her. We were sitting on the couch, the TV on but muted. She had her phone in her hand, scrolling, her thumb moving in these little flicks. I asked, "Who are you texting?" She glanced at me, her face calm, but her eyes sharp. "Just work stuff." "Why?" "Work stuff at 11 at night?" I pressed. "Yeah," she said flatly. "Deadlines don't care about what time it is." There was no warmth in her voice, no joking defense, just coldness. I wanted to push further, but I saw the way she tightened her jaw, the way her whole body seemed to close itself off, and I let it drop. That was my mistake. Fast forward 6 months. By then, I'd gathered enough small pieces of evidence to know for certain. A lipstick-stained receipt in her purse from a bar across town, a random men's hoodie tucked in the backseat of her car, her showering immediately when she got home late at night. I had two choices: confront her directly, or find a way to really know the truth. And here's the part that still chills me, because if I had just confronted her, screamed, divorced, thrown her out, I wouldn't have gone through what I did. But I chose the second option. It was a Friday night in mid-November when I followed her. She told me she was meeting a client for a late-night brainstorming session. I nodded, kissed her cheek, told her to have fun. Then I waited 10 minutes, grabbed my car keys, and slipped out. I kept a few cars back, headlights off, my pulse hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. She drove across town, past the office building she supposedly worked at, and into a neighborhood I didn't recognize. She pulled up to a small bar called The Lantern, a dimly lit dive tucked between two pawn shops. I parked a block away and watched from the shadows. That's when I saw him. Tall, muscular, bright red hair that stood out even under the flickering streetlight. He leaned against the bar entrance like he owned the whole damn place. The moment Melissa stepped out of her car, he wrapped his arms around her waist and kissed her. I felt my chest cave in. My wife, my partner, my best friend, was kissing another man like she used to kiss me. I should have stormed up to them, should have dragged her away, should have done something. But I didn't. Instead, I watched. They went inside, and like a coward, I followed. The Lantern wasn't crowded, but it was loud. Music blasting, people laughing, glasses clinking. I slipped into a booth near the back where I could see them. Melissa and the red-haired man, let's call him Derek, sat at the bar. She ordered drinks, her laughter too high, too flirty. He leaned close, whispering in her ear. And then something strange happened. I expected her to nurse one drink, maybe two. Instead, she kept ordering, for herself, for him, for strangers nearby. She was buying everyone drinks, smiling, laughing, acting like money was no issue even though we'd been fighting about bills for months. It didn't make sense. At one point, she turned in her seat and locked eyes with me across the bar. My blood froze. I thought I'd been caught, but her gaze slid right past me to a younger guy sitting nearby. She leaned toward him, flashing that same smile she once gave me, and offered to buy him a shot. That's when I realized something. She wasn't just cheating, she was hunting. I know how crazy that sounds, but what happened next is burned into me like a scar. The young guy she targeted looked barely 21, nervous but eager. Melissa and Derek flanked him like predators, laughing, egging him on, pouring drink after drink down his throat. When his friend tried to intervene, Melissa whispered something to him, stroked his arm, promised she'd take care of him. She was relentless. The friend hesitated, torn between loyalty and the intoxicating attention of a beautiful woman. Finally, Melissa leaned close, smiling sweetly, and said, "If you want to come too, you can." My stomach twisted. This wasn't about drinks. This wasn't about cheating. This was something darker. I sat frozen, every instinct screaming at me to get up, get out, call the cops, something. But I couldn't move. The boys left with Melissa and Derek. I stumbled after them, staying far enough back to avoid notice. They piled into Melissa's car. Derek drove. I followed as they wound through back streets until they pulled up to a small, run-down house on the edge of town. I killed my engine and watched. The boys staggered inside, Melissa leading them, Derek locking the door behind them. For a few minutes, there was nothing. Then I saw shadows moving behind the blinds, heard faint voices, a woman's laugh, a man's muffled shout, something heavy thudding against the floor. My skin crawled. I knew that if I didn't do something, those boys wouldn't walk back out. But I couldn't force myself to the door, couldn't risk being seen. So I sat there gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, while God knows what happened inside. After what felt like hours, the door finally opened. Melissa stepped out first, her hair messy, her lipstick smeared. Behind her came Derek, carrying something heavy wrapped in a dark blanket. They loaded it into the trunk of Melissa's car, slammed it shut, drove off into the night. I stayed frozen until the taillights disappeared. Then I stumbled out of my car, legs shaking, and crept toward the house. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air reeked of alcohol and something metallic. The living room was a mess. Overturned chairs, empty bottles, a smear of red across the hardwood floor. My heart lodged in my throat. I didn't dare go further. I ran. That night I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Melissa's smile, heard her laugh, saw that blanket being carried out the door. The next morning she came home like nothing had happened, kissed me on the cheek, asked if I wanted pancakes. I stared at her, numb, trying to reconcile the woman in front of me with the monster I saw last night. And that's when it hit me. If I told anyone, no one would believe me. She was perfect, charming, beloved by friends, co-workers, family. I was just the paranoid husband with a failing marriage. I said nothing. Weeks passed, then months. Melissa kept cheating, kept sneaking out at night, kept flashing that smile at strangers. And every time I wondered how many didn't make it home. I never saw her kill anyone, never saw blood on her hands. But I saw enough to know the truth. And the worst part, I still loved her. It's been 2 years since then. We're divorced now. I couldn't stay. I couldn't watch anymore. But sometimes, late at night, I'll scroll through the local news and see a missing persons report. A college kid. A young man. A woman who went out for drinks and never came back. And every time I see Melissa's smile, I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because I need someone to believe me. Maybe because if anything ever happens to me, I want people to know it was her. Melissa, my wife, the woman I loved, the woman who hunts. I was 31 years old when my life split in two. The life I thought I had, and the life that was really happening behind my back. Back then, I still thought of myself as a grounded guy. My name's Ethan Ward, and I've spent most of my life in Ravenbrook, Pennsylvania, a quiet river town where everyone knows everyone's business. My parents still live across the bridge, in the same ranch house I grew up in. I wasn't rich, but I had stability. I worked as a project coordinator for a construction supply company, steady hours, decent pay. I had my own 2-story house, a beat-up Ford truck, and what I thought was a strong marriage. Her name was Lena. We'd been together for almost 10 years, married for 5. We met at a coffee shop near the Penn State campus when we were both 21. She was studying accounting. I was buried in project management classes. She had this light in her, warm, quick to laugh, always asking me questions in a way that made me feel like I mattered. I remember she spilled her iced latte on me during that first meeting, apologizing so much that I had to laugh. Somehow that messy beginning turned into a love I thought would last forever. But nothing lasts forever, not the way you imagine it. At first, our marriage was fine, better than fine. We had Friday night takeouts, little road trips, late night arguments about movies. She pushed me to take better care of myself. I encouraged her to chase her CPA certification. For a while, I thought we balanced each other. Then Lena started working at Grant & Cole Accounting, the biggest firm in Ravenbrook. That's when things shifted. Her hours got longer. She stayed late for client dinners. She texted constantly, but not with me. She angled her phone away when I walked into the room, and whenever I asked how her day was, her answers grew shorter. Fine. Busy. Stressful. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. Maybe marriage naturally got quiet. but in the pit of my stomach I knew. And the man's name, the one who cracked my life in half, was Damian Cole. It was early October when I got my first undeniable sign. Thursday night. I remember because Thursdays were always our night. We'd order Thai, watch something dumb, and just enjoy the evening. But that night, Lena texted me around 6:15. Don't wait up. End of quarter review. Might be late. I didn't think much of it until I heard her car roll into the driveway at 8:30. She walked in with her hair tousled, her lipstick faintly smudged, and this sharp, musky cologne clinging to her clothes. Long night? I asked, forcing calm into my voice. Yeah, she said quickly, tossing her bag down. I'm beat. I'm going to shower. She disappeared upstairs before I could say more. Later, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I don't make a habit of snooping, but I swear something inside me knew. The preview on the screen said, "Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you." The sender, Damian. My chest locked up. I knew him. He was one of the partners at her firm. I'd shaken his hand once at their Christmas party. Perfect teeth, perfect suit, that practiced confidence that made me feel like a kid standing next to him. I didn't open the message. I couldn't. I just set the phone back down, my hands shaking, and pretended to be asleep when Lena crawled into bed later. That was the night the trust died. The next day I met up with my oldest friend, Victor Hayes, at a bar we'd been going to since college. Victor was the kind of friend who never sugarcoated things. Brutally honest, sometimes to a fault. I told him everything, my voice low, eyes darting around the bar like I was spilling state secrets. Victor leaned back, crossing his arms. Ethan, you know what that is. That's not a work text. That's not innocent. I don't want to jump to conclusions, I muttered. He gave me a hard look. Man, you already know the conclusion. Don't gaslight yourself. You've been with her 10 years. You know her. If you feel it, it's real. His words sank like stones in my stomach. I tried to hold it together, but a week later I cracked. We were eating dinner in silence. I put my fork down and asked, Lena, are you seeing someone else? Her head snapped up, eyes wide, almost offended. What? Ethan, no. Why would you even? Because I'm not stupid, I said quietly. You're different. Distant. And I saw a text. Her face drained. For a moment, she was stone. Then she tried to recover, shaking her head. It's not what you think. Damian's just... He flirts with everyone, it's harmless. Last night was incredible. That's harmless? She opened her mouth, shut it, and pushed away from the table. I don't want to fight about this right now. She went upstairs, leaving me at the table, staring at my untouched food. That was the moment I realized I was living with a stranger. The betrayal was bad enough. But what happened after is the part that still keeps me awake at night. It started with whispers. Some nights, when Lena thought I was asleep, I'd hear her talking downstairs in the kitchen. Low, urgent whispers, like someone was there with her. But when I went down, the room was empty, the back door locked. Other times, I'd catch her standing at the living room window in the dark, staring out at nothing. When I asked what she was doing, she'd just smile too wide and say, just thinking. One night I woke up at 3 a.m. to find her side of the bed empty. I padded downstairs and froze. Lena was standing in the middle of the kitchen, her face turned toward the corner, as if someone stood there. But the corner was empty. Her lips moved, whispering something I couldn't hear. When I said her name, she spun around, eyes wide, and for a split second, I swear to God, her smile stretched too far, like something was pulling it unnaturally wide. Ethan, she said softly, go back to bed. I did. Not because I wanted to, but because I was terrified. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. I had fallen asleep on the couch. Around 2:45 a.m., a loud thud upstairs jolted me awake. My heart pounded as I grabbed a flashlight and headed up. The bedroom door was ajar. Inside, Lena wasn't alone, but it wasn't Damian. Something else stood by the bed, a tall black figure hunched, its face a grotesque grin stretched ear to ear, eyes like white lamps burning in the dark. And Lena wasn't screaming. She wasn't fighting. She was standing beside it, her head tilted unnaturally, her mouth stretched in the same impossible grin. They both turned to look at me in unison. Ethan, she whispered, her voice not her own. You should have never looked at the phone. The flashlight slipped from my hands. I don't remember running. I just remember waking up hours later in my truck, parked miles away at Victor's place, shaking, crying, unable to explain. When I finally went back to the house at dawn, Lena was gone. Her clothes, her things, vanished. No note. No trace. I haven't seen her since. The police filed a missing person report, but they looked at me like I was holding something back. How could I tell them the truth? That my wife hadn't just cheated on me. She'd let something inhuman into our home. Victor believes me, or at least he pretends to. He lets me crash at his place when I can't stand sleeping alone in that house. Sometimes, though, when I drive past the accounting firm, I see Damien's car parked out front late at night. And sometimes I swear I see a tall black shadow watching from the upstairs window. It's been almost a year now, and I still don't know what's worse, losing Lena to another man, or losing her to whatever that thing was. But every time I close my eyes, I see that grin, and I hear her voice echoing in the dark. You should have never looked at the phone. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who doubted his own wife. My name is Ethan Mercer, and I grew up in a quiet town in Pennsylvania where everyone knew everyone. My parents had been married for 38 years, and they raised me with the belief that marriage was sacred, something you fought for, something you cherished. When I was 26, I met Rachel, the woman I thought I would grow old with. She was a nurse, compassionate and sharp-witted, with a smile that could cut through the darkest of days. I was working as a construction project manager back then, managing deadlines and juggling subcontractors, always tired but always proud of the work I did. Rachel and I met at a coffee shop near the hospital. She dropped her bag, spilled half her latte, and I helped her clean it up. That simple moment turned into a conversation, and a conversation turned into a date. We fell in love quickly. Too quickly, maybe. Within a year, we were married. We rented a small 2-bedroom apartment in Philadelphia, a modest place with cracked plaster walls and drafty windows. But we were happy. Or at least, I thought we were. The first years were good. We struggled with money, sure. But Rachel always supported me, and I admired her for the long, grueling hours she put into her shifts. We talked about kids, about buying a house someday, about vacations we could never quite afford. She was my best friend as much as she was my wife. But marriage doesn't unravel overnight. It frays slowly, quietly, until one day you look at the person across from you at the dinner table and realize they feel like a stranger. It started small. Rachel began picking up more shifts, often claiming the hospital was short-staffed. She'd come home late, sometimes after midnight, too exhausted to talk. I believed her. Of course I did. Nurses work insane hours, it wasn't unusual. But then came the secrets. She started taking her phone with her everywhere, even to the bathroom. Her laughter while texting felt different, more private. When I asked, she brushed me off with, "It's just Emily from work, don't be paranoid." Her scent changed too. Not her perfume, she always wore the same vanilla-scented lotion, but her. I'd hug her after she came home, and beneath the faint aroma of disinfectant from the hospital, there was something else, something masculine. I ignored it at first. Told myself I was imagining things, but then, one night, around 11:45, I woke up to find the bed empty. Rachel wasn't home. Her shift was supposed to end hours ago. I called her, no answer. I texted, no reply. I sat on the couch staring at the clock until 2 a.m. When she finally walked through the door, hair damp like she'd showered somewhere else, cheeks flushed, she claimed she had to stay late for an emergency surgery. I nodded, pretending to believe her. But inside, something shifted. A voice whispered in the back of my mind, "She's lying." I started noticing more. She dressed differently for work, suddenly putting extra effort into her appearance. She wore lipstick she never used to wear. When I kissed her, she sometimes turned her face away. One evening, she left her phone on the counter while showering. It buzzed with a message. I shouldn't have looked. I know that, but curiosity ate me alive. The name flashing on the screen was Mark Hospital. The message read, "Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. Same time tomorrow?" My heart stopped. My hands shook as I placed the phone back exactly where it was. When she came out of the bathroom, smiling like nothing was wrong, I forced myself to act normal. But inside I was crumbling. I didn't explode right away. Maybe part of me wanted to be wrong, wanted to collect more proof before I shattered the illusion of our marriage. So I waited, watched, listened. A week later, when she told me she was covering another late shift, I followed her. I parked across the street from the hospital, watching the entrance. She walked out around 8:30 p.m., not in scrubs, but in a short black dress I'd never seen before. My stomach twisted. She didn't head toward the hospital wing. She walked down the block, straight into the arms of a tall man in a leather jacket. Mark. They kissed under a street lamp. Not a quick peck. A full, desperate kiss. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Every ounce of me wanted to storm across the street and rip him away from her. But I didn't. I just sat there, heart splintering, watching the woman I loved disappear into a hotel with another man. For weeks after that, I pretended. Every morning, I kissed her goodbye. Every night, I asked about her shifts and nodded while she lied. Inside, I was screaming. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The betrayal gnawed at me. A parasite burrowed deep in my chest. And then the dream started. I'd wake up in the middle of the night sweating, convinced I'd heard voices in the apartment. I'd see shadows moving near the corner of the room, hear whispers of my own name. Maybe it was the stress. Maybe it was my mind breaking under the weight of what I knew. But the line between reality and nightmare blurred. One night, as I lay awake, I swear I felt the bed dip, as if someone else had sat down beside me. I turned, expecting to see Rachel, but she was asleep, facing the wall. Yet I still felt a hand graze mine in the dark. I confronted her on a Sunday afternoon. She was folding laundry in the living room when I blurted out, "Who's Mark?" She froze, a sock dangling from her hands. Her eyes darted to mine, wide with panic. "What are you talking about? Don't lie to me, I saw you. I followed you." My voice cracked, raw with weeks of bottled-up rage. Her face crumbled, tears welling in her eyes. "Ethan, just tell me the truth." She broke down, sobbing, admitting everything. That it started as harmless flirting at work, that she felt lonely with me, always busy, that she didn't mean for it to go this far. Excuses, excuses. "You destroyed us," I whispered. "Please, Ethan, I love you. It was a mistake, I swear." But the image of her kissing him replayed in my mind on a loop, stabbing me again and again. I told her I needed space. I couldn't look at her without feeling sick. That night, I slept on the couch. Sometime after midnight, I woke to the sound of whispering again. I sat up, heart pounding. The apartment was dark, but I could swear I saw a figure standing in the hallway. "Rachel?" I called. No answer. I stood, stepping closer. The figure vanished, but as I turned, I saw Rachel standing in the kitchen, staring blankly at me, her face pale, her eyes hollow. "Are you okay?" I asked. She didn't respond, just turned and walked back to the bedroom. When I followed, the bed was empty, sheets cold, but on her pillow, there was a note. It read, "Our home." My blood ran cold. The words mirrored the nightmares I'd been having. For a second, I wondered if grief and betrayal had finally broken me. The next morning, I received a phone call. It was the hospital. Rachel had been in a car accident the night before. They said she didn't survive. My phone slipped from my hand. I thought about the kitchen, about her standing there, staring at me with those lifeless eyes. If she had died before I saw her, then who or what was in my apartment that night? It's been 2 years since that night. I've moved cities, tried to rebuild my life, but the scars remain. Some nights I wake to that same whisper, the faint sound of my name carried through the dark. Sometimes I think I see her reflection in the mirror behind me, watching. And every once in a while, when I come home from work, there's a folded note on my doorstep. Always the same words. "Our home." I'll never know if it's her ghost, or my guilt made flesh. All I know is that I once believed betrayal was the worst horror a man could face. I was wrong, because betrayal doesn't just haunt you in life. It follows you after. I never thought I'd be the kind of man telling a story like this. If you asked anyone who knew me growing up, they would have said I was predictable in the safest way possible. A steady guy, not the type to attract chaos. But life has a way of teaching you that normal doesn't protect you from betrayal or horror. My name is Daniel Hartman, and I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut. My parents were old school, married for 45 years, loyal to the bone. That was the picture of love I had carried in my head all my life. I thought when you found the right person, everything else fell into place. No questions, no cracks. Just two people working through the world together. I met Rachel in college. She wasn't flashy, wasn't the loudest in the room, but she had a warmth about her that could calm me down even when I was spiraling before an exam. She was the type of girl you introduced to your parents and instantly saw your mom already planning the wedding in her head, and honestly, my mom did. By the time I was 28, Rachel and I were married. We'd bought a modest house on a quiet street near West Hartford, with just enough space for us and maybe a kid someday. I was working as a financial analyst, grinding through long hours, while Rachel taught at a local elementary school. Life was steady, predictable. That was what I wanted. But in hindsight, maybe steady was also dangerous. It gave me a false sense of security, like nothing could touch us. And when small cracks started to show, I convinced myself they were just stress. Or, all marriages go through this. It started subtle. Rachel became glued to her phone in ways she hadn't been before. She'd tilt the screen away when I walked past, or claim she was just checking lesson plans. She began staying late at school more often. Grading papers, she'd say. At first, I believed her. I wanted to believe her, but there were nights I sat on the couch with a beer in hand, staring at the clock tick past midnight, and I couldn't stop the pit in my stomach from growing. One night I said, half joking, half testing, "Babe, you got a secret second family with how late you're staying at school?" She froze for a fraction of a second before forcing a laugh. "Yeah, Daniel, you caught me. Whole other husband and kids, you're too sharp." We both laughed it off, but inside, I felt something shift. The tone in her voice didn't sound playful. It sounded defensive. The real unraveling started on a cold Friday night in December. I had just finished one of the worst weeks at work. I wanted to come home, order pizza, and just sit with her. Maybe watch some dumb holiday movie. When I walked into the house, the lights were off. Rachel wasn't home. I texted her. Me. "Hey, where are you? I got pizza." Rachel. "Still at school. Big project. Don't wait up." That pit in my stomach turned into something darker. Something that whispered, "Go check. Find out for yourself." So I did. I got in my car, drove to her school, parked across the street. The building was dark. No lights on inside. No cars in the lot except one, a silver Honda, Rachel's car, but she wasn't inside the school. I waited. My hands were shaking, my breath fogging up the windshield. Minutes crawled. Then, finally, I saw her. She wasn't alone. She walked out of the side door with a man, tall, dark jacket, leaned down close like he was whispering something only meant for her. She laughed. She touched his arm, and then, God help me, they kissed. My whole body went numb. I don't know how I got home. Rage blurred everything. I sat in the driveway for half an hour, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. When she finally came home later that night, I was waiting in the kitchen. "Long night grading papers?" I asked, voice tight. She looked startled, then annoyed. "Daniel, don't start. I'm exhausted." I snapped. "I saw you, Rachel. At the school. With him. Don't you dare lie to me." Her face drained of color. For a second, I thought she'd crumble, apologize, beg for forgiveness. But she didn't. Instead, she went cold. "So what if you did?" she said flatly. That hit me harder than the betrayal itself. No denial. No shame. Just acceptance. "You've been sneaking around behind my back for how long?" I demanded. Her silence was answer enough. We argued for hours that night. I shouted. She cried. Then she shouted back. Everything I thought was stable in my life crumbled. Weeks turned into months of tension. Sleeping in separate rooms. Whisper fights that turned into screaming matches. But here's the thing, this wasn't just some tragic end of marriage story. This is where the horror began. Because while most cheating ends with lawyers and papers, mine ended with something much darker. It was late January when the first text came in. An unknown number. "You don't know the whole truth." I thought it was spam at first. But then came another. "She isn't just cheating, she's planning something worse." I stared at the screen, chills crawling up my arms. Who the hell was this? That night, when Rachel was in the shower, I snuck into her phone. Most of her messages with the guy were deleted, but not all. What I saw made my stomach flip. Him. He won't see it coming. Rachel. I just need to get him out of the way. Out of the way. Those words burned into me. One night, after another brutal fight, Rachel said she was going to stay with a friend for the weekend to cool off. I didn't argue. I pretended not to care. But I followed her. She drove out of town, into the woods past Canton, miles from anything. Finally, she pulled up to a cabin run down, isolated. My heart hammered in my chest as I watched her go inside. A few minutes later, the man from the school joined her. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw enough through the half-broken blinds. They weren't just sleeping together. They were planning. She had papers spread across the table. Maps. My name scribbled on something. I backed away, terrified. 2 weeks later, Rachel asked me to go for a walk with her. We need to talk. Somewhere quiet. Every instinct in me screamed, don't go. But part of me still loved her. Still wanted answers. So I agreed. We drove out near the same woods. Snow covered the ground, soft crunch beneath our boots. My breath came out in clouds as we walked deeper under the trees. She stopped suddenly, turned to me with that same cold expression she'd had the night I confronted her. "You should have just let it go, Daniel," she said. Before I could ask what she meant, I heard a branch snap behind me. The man stepped out of the trees holding something in his hand. A rope. I bolted. My legs pumped like I'd never run before. Branches whipped my face. Snow sprayed up behind me. My lungs burned, but fear kept me moving. Behind me, I heard their footsteps pounding. Rachel's voice shouting, "Don't let him get away." I stumbled, caught myself, kept running. That's when I saw it, a small cabin ahead. The door creaked open, as if waiting for me. My gut twisted. Number, not again. Not their trap. I veered off, sprinting into the darkness. But the woods were endless. My legs gave out. I crashed headfirst into a tree. Pain exploded in my skull. The world went black. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital bed. White walls, machines beeping softly. A doctor leaned over me. "You're lucky. Hit your head pretty bad. Some hikers found you by the roadside. You'll be okay." Roadside. My last memory was collapsing deep in the woods. How did I get out? Who carried me there? The police questioned me, but I couldn't tell them everything. What could I say? That my wife tried to lure me into the woods to kill me with her lover? That she had maps and plans? They'd laugh me out of the station without proof. But Rachel, she never came to the hospital. She never visited. When I got home days later, she was gone. Her things cleared out. No note, no goodbye. Just silence. It's been 6 months now. The house feels empty, haunted not by ghosts but by betrayal. Some nights, I still get those unknown texts. "She isn't finished. Watch your back." I don't know who's sending them. Maybe Rachel. Maybe him. Maybe someone else entirely. All I know is every time I step outside at night, I feel eyes on me. Like the woods followed me home. And sometimes, when I wake in the dead of night, I swear I hear the floorboards creak, as if she came back, as if the plan isn't over. I was 34 when I realized my marriage wasn't what I thought it was. Not because of one dramatic revelation. Not because of catching her in some Hollywood-style act of betrayal. No, it happened slowly. Subtle cracks forming, small things that didn't add up. Until one day I couldn't pretend anymore. My name is Darren Cole, and I live in Ravenbrook, Ohio. It's not a remarkable city, not the kind of place that shows up in movies. Just factories, neighborhoods, a downtown with a few restaurants that try too hard, and a university that keeps the local economy alive. I had lived there all my life, working as an IT technician for a logistics company. My days were spent fixing printers, patching servers, and pretending to laugh at the same corny jokes from guys who couldn't remember their passwords. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. And then there was Marissa Hale, my wife. We'd been married 6 years. From the outside, people would have thought we were solid. We had a 2-bedroom apartment on the west side of Ravenbrook, a little balcony with dead plants I swore I'd replace every spring, and a rhythm to life that seemed stable. Dinner most nights together, the occasional movie, vacations when we could afford them. But stability can be a mask. I started noticing things about Marissa that gnawed at me. The way she kept her phone face down on the table when she was home. The client dinners she never described in detail. The new dresses that showed up in her closet with price tags I knew her salary couldn't justify. At first I told myself I was paranoid, jealous, insecure. I had grown up watching my father accuse my mother of things she never did, and I didn't want to be that man. For months, I swallowed it. But the night it really hit me, the night I couldn't deny it anymore, was a Friday in late autumn. Marissa said she was going to dinner with a client from out of town. I nodded, told her to have fun, and ordered a pizza. I sat on the couch, scrolling through Netflix, waiting for her. Midnight came and went. Then 1 a.m., then 2. I texted her. "You good?" No reply. I called, straight to voicemail. By the time she came through the door at nearly 4 a.m., I was sitting at the kitchen table, the pizza cold in its box. She smelled of whiskey and something else, cologne, faint but unmistakable. Not mine. "Long dinner?" I asked. My voice came out quieter than I meant. She froze in the doorway, then gave a little laugh. "Yeah, sorry. Clients kept ordering rounds. It got late." I stared at her. Her makeup smudged at the corners, hair a little too messy for just dinner. I saw a faint line of lipstick at the edge of her jaw. It wasn't hers. "Marissa," I said. "Who were you with?" She met my eyes for the briefest moment before looking away. "I told you. Clients." I didn't push. I just nodded. "Right." That night, she slipped into bed and fell asleep within minutes. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, every nerve in my body humming like a live wire. From then on, I started watching. Her phone buzzed more often. She'd smile at messages but never tell me who they were from. She'd come home late, jump straight into the shower, and I could smell perfume that wasn't hers clinging to her skin. And then came the breaking point. It was a Wednesday night. I left work early, claiming a server crash. Instead of going home, I parked 3 blocks from her office. At 7:45, I saw her walk out, not alone but with a man. He was tall, sharply dressed, laughing with her like they shared a private joke. And then I saw it. His hand brushed the small of her back as they crossed the street. That was Ethan Ward. I didn't know his name at the time, but I would soon. I followed them at a distance, heart pounding, palms sweating. They walked into a wine bar on 8th Street. Through the window, I saw them sit close, her leaning toward him, laughing in that way she hadn't laughed with me in years. His hand touched hers across the table. I wanted to storm in there. I wanted to flip the table, scream, demand answers. But instead, I sat in my car until my vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. When she got home that night at 11:30, she acted like nothing had happened. She kissed my cheek, asked if I'd eaten, and curled up next to me on the couch as if she hadn't just been with another man. I couldn't take it anymore. The next few days, I started digging. I became someone I never thought I'd be, checking her emails when she left her laptop open, looking through her purse for receipts, following her car when she said she was going to, late meetings. And what I found confirmed everything. Hotel receipts, dinner bills for 2, messages hidden in her phone under a fake contact labeled work. It wasn't just an affair. It was planned, frequent, intimate. When I confronted her, it was late on a Sunday evening. I couldn't hold it anymore. "Marissa," I said, my voice trembling. "How long?" She was folding laundry on the couch. She froze. "What do you mean? How long have you been seeing him?" Her hands shook. She looked up at me, eyes wide, then narrowed. "Who?" "Don't," I said, my throat burning. "Don't insult me. Ethan, the man from your office, the one you're screwing in hotels while I sit at home like an idiot." The silence stretched so long I thought I'd suffocate. Finally, she whispered, 2 years. I felt something in me die right then. I wanted to scream, to rage, but all I could do was whisper, "Why?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know, Darren. I don't know. I didn't plan for this. I didn't mean to hurt you." But she had. And now there was no way back. For weeks, I lived in a fog. Every corner of the apartment felt poisoned. Her laugh, her smell, her touch, all of it tainted. She begged me to go to therapy, to try and work through it. But how could I? She had built an entire secret life behind my back. That's when the nightmares started. At first, I thought it was stress, but they grew darker. I'd dream of Marissa standing at the end of our bed, her face blank, her eyes hollow, whispering things I couldn't understand. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, convinced I'd seen someone in the apartment. Sometimes I swore I could hear whispers in the walls, or footsteps in the hall outside our door when no one was there. I brushed it off as my mind unraveling. But the more I sank into the betrayal, the worse it got. One night, I woke to the sound of Marissa's voice. She was talking quietly in the living room. I thought maybe she was on the phone, but when I got up and walked in, the room was empty. Another night, I smelled Ethan's cologne in our bedroom, sharp, musky, unmistakable, though he had never set foot in our home. It was as if the affair itself had taken on a life of its own, haunting me. The final straw came one night when I woke to the feeling of weight on my chest. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, and when I looked, Marissa was straddling me, her face twisted, eyes black, whispering Ethan's name over and over. I screamed, and suddenly she was gone, replaced by the dark ceiling of our bedroom. But the terror was real. The next morning I packed a bag and left. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment across town. Papers were filed. Marissa begged, pleaded, cried, but I couldn't go back. Even away from her, though, the nightmares didn't stop. I still hear whispers at night. I still smell cologne that isn't mine. Sometimes I wake convinced someone's in the room with me, and sometimes I swear I see her. Not Marissa as she was, but Marissa as she looked that night in the nightmare. Hollow, empty, whispering Ethan's name. I don't know if it's trauma, or if something darker followed me out of that marriage. All I know is that betrayal doesn't just break your heart. It changes something inside you forever. And some nights, when I'm lying awake in the silence, I wonder if I'll ever really be free of her, or if she and what she did will haunt me until the day I die. I was 32 when I first realized that the walls I had built to separate my personal life from my professional one were bound to collapse. My name is Adrian Cross, and for the past 3 years, I had been running a private investigation agency out of a cramped office above a pawn shop on Harrison Avenue in Brookfield, a city that gleamed with glass towers in the day and drowned in neon haze at night. From the outside, my life looked simple. A bachelor, hardworking, dependable, the kind of man who could be trusted to untangle lies for a fee. My reputation for discretion had grown quickly. Husbands suspicious of wives, wives suspicious of husbands, business partners who smelled fraud. It didn't matter. If someone wanted the truth, they came to me. But there was another truth I wasn't sharing. I was in love with Elena Mercer, a woman who belonged to someone else. She was 30, elegant in a way that never felt forced, her auburn hair catching light like fire, her green eyes always daring me to believe her when she said she wasn't happy at home. She told me her marriage was a cage, her husband a man she no longer recognized. She said she wanted freedom, and she said she wanted me. I believed her. God help me, I wanted to believe her. But when you spend your life digging through other people's secrets, you should know better than to think your own will stay buried. The knock at the office. It was a Wednesday morning when it happened. I was sipping on coffee that had already gone lukewarm, skimming the Brookfield Gazette like I did most mornings, pretending the world still cared about printed words. Rain tapped against the window, steady and soft. That was when I heard the knock. 3 sharp raps, firm and deliberate. "Come in," I called. The door opened, and a man stepped inside. He looked like wealth had dressed itself in caution. Tall, slender, silver-streaked hair combed back, rimless glasses perched on a nose that seemed made for disapproval. His charcoal suit fit too perfectly to be bought off a rack. "Mr. Cross?" he asked. His voice was low, guarded. "That's me," I said, rising from my chair to shake his hand. His grip was firm but soft, practiced, the kind that belonged to boardrooms, not construction sites. "Grant Mercer." He introduced himself. The name punched the air out of me. Mercer, Elena's husband. I kept my face still. "Please, sit," I said, forcing my voice steady. "What can I do for you?" He lowered himself into the chair across from me, folding his hands together. His eyes scanned the room quickly, then landed on mine. "You come highly recommended," he said. "Discreet, reliable. That's what I need." I nodded once. "That's what I offer." He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "I have reason to believe my wife is being unfaithful." The words sliced through me. "I see," I managed. "You'd like me to confirm your suspicions?" "Yes. I want you to follow her. Find out where she goes, who she meets. I don't want guesses. I want proof." He reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a small envelope, sliding it across my desk. Inside was a photograph and a check. My stomach knotted as I opened it. Elena's face smiled up at me from the glossy print. The conflict. I forced myself to look at it like any other case file, but my hand trembled slightly as I slid the picture back into the envelope. "I can do that," I said, my voice almost mechanical. "How long would you like me to run the surveillance?" 2 weeks, Grant said. "That should be enough, unless you think longer is necessary." 2 weeks will do. He nodded. "Good. I'll trust you with the rest." As he rose to leave, he offered me a final, Measured look. I assume your discretion is as good as I've been told? It is, I said, my throat dry. Then we'll speak again soon. When the door closed behind him, I slumped back into my chair. My pulse was racing. I stared at the photo again. Elena's smile burning into me. This was the trap I'd set for myself. If I told Grant the truth, I would lose Elena and destroy my business in one blow. If I lied, I risked being caught, and Grant Mercer was not a man I wanted as an enemy. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk, pulled out a bottle of scotch, and poured a glass. As the burn hit my throat, I made my decision. I would assign the case to my new operative, Daniel Hayes. He was young, eager, and sharp. He didn't know about Elena. He would follow her, document her movements, and hand me the report. Then I would filter the truth. That way, I could protect myself and Elena. At least, that was the plan. The investigation. For the next 2 weeks I avoided Elena. No calls, no late-night visits, no stolen kisses. I told myself it was safer this way, that she'd thank me later when the storm passed. Daniel, meanwhile, threw himself into the case with the kind of energy only rookies had. Every night he brought back notes, times, places, details. She's careful, he told me, but not careful enough. I forced myself not to ask questions. By the end of the 2 weeks, Daniel was practically glowing. I'll have the full report typed up by morning, he said, grinning. It's thorough. You're going to like it. But when morning came, he wasn't ready. At exactly 10 o'clock, Grant Mercer walked into my office. He looked calm, collected, the kind of man who expected answers. Good morning, Mr. Mercer, I said, forcing a smile. Would you like some coffee? That would be nice. I poured us both cups, the steam curling between us. My palms were sweating. Just then, Daniel entered, a folder in hand. Morning, boss. Mr. Mercer. He nodded politely, then handed me the file. I flipped it open quickly, pulled out the original report, and slid it across to Grant. The duplicate I kept face down in front of me. Grant read silently, his expression never changing. He turned each page with steady fingers. When he finished, he closed the folder and looked at me. 3, he said. Beg your pardon, I asked. I was afraid of something like this. 3 lovers. In just 2 weeks. My blood ran cold. What? He tapped the folder. That's what your report says, isn't it? Thorough work, painful, but thorough. I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. Using the excuse of wiping spilled coffee from the duplicate copy, I glanced through the pages. My eyes devoured the words. Elena seen at a cafe with one man, leaving a hotel with another, meeting yet another late at night. Photographs attached, timestamps, dates. Daniel's work was meticulous, too meticulous. I stared at the evidence, my throat closing. 3. Not just one, not just me. 3. When I finally looked up, Grant was watching me with a small, knowing grin. You seem surprised, Mr. Cross, he said softly. Don't you believe your own report? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My chest felt heavy, my hands numb. Grant leaned back, eyes glinting. There are some women you just can't trust, no matter what they say, no matter how much they smile. Some people are simply hollow. The words sank like stones. He stood, straightened his jacket, and tucked the folder under his arm. Thank you for your work, he said, his tone clipped. Your discretion is appreciated. And then he was gone. I sat there in silence, staring at the duplicate report. Elena's face, frozen in photographs with men who weren't me, men who weren't her husband. The illusion shattered, piece by jagged piece. That night, I didn't go to Elena. I didn't call. I didn't even drink. I just sat in the darkness of my apartment, the city buzzing faintly outside, my mind replaying every word she had ever told me, every promise, every whisper. I had built my life around uncovering lies, and still, I had been living in one. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I packed the duplicate report into an envelope, wrote her name on it, and left it outside her apartment door. No note, no explanation, just the truth. When I walked away, I didn't look back, because some women you can't save, and some lies you can't survive. I was 34 when I learned that the person I trusted most in the world had been lying to me. My name is Ryan Mercer. I grew up in a mid-sized city in Ohio. Not too big, not too small, The kind of place where everyone seems to know just enough about you to make your personal life their business. After finishing college, I landed a steady job as a logistics manager at a distribution center. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well, and it was stable. Stability had always been something I valued. When I was 26, I met Claire. She was working part-time at a coffee shop near my office. Blonde hair, green eyes, the kind of smile that drew people in. I wasn't the most confident guy, but something about her energy made me talk more than I usually would. We dated for about 2 years, got married in a small ceremony with just our families, and bought a townhouse together. Life wasn't perfect, but it was steady. We had our routine Sunday morning coffee, binge-watching shows on rainy nights, planning vacations we rarely took. My parents loved her. My friends thought we were that couple who had it figured out. But if I'm being honest, things started to feel off about a year ago. Claire got a new job at a marketing firm downtown. She'd always worked odd shifts, but now she was coming home later and later. Her phone was glued to her hand, face down on the counter. She started dressing differently, putting on more makeup before work, and spending more nights out with co-workers. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. After all, she was ambitious. She'd always wanted a career that made her proud, and I wanted to support her. But the little things started to eat away at me. The quiet arguments about why she didn't answer her phone. The way she avoided eye contact when I asked simple questions like, "Who were you texting?" One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. "Claire," I said as she came in around 11 p.m., smelling faintly of alcohol and perfume that wasn't hers. "We need to talk." She dropped her purse on the counter and gave me this tired smile. "Not tonight, Ryan. I had a long day. That's every night lately." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Where were you?" "With co-workers." She kicked off her heels and headed upstairs. "Don't make this a thing. Don't make this a thing." But it was already a thing. That night, while she showered, I checked her purse. I hated myself for it. But something in my gut told me I'd find something. Sure enough, there was a crumpled receipt from a hotel bar across town. 2 cocktails. A date 2 nights ago. She hadn't mentioned going anywhere that night. She told me she was working late. My chest tightened, but I didn't confront her right then. I wanted to be sure. Over the next week, I started paying closer attention. She'd leave her phone charging on the nightstand, but the moment I walked into the room, she'd flip it face down. One evening, when she was in the shower again, I picked it up. No password. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. There they were. Messages. Hundreds of them. Him. Same time tomorrow. I can't stop thinking about last night. Her. Me too. I'll say I'm stuck at work again. Him. You're incredible, Claire. Her. Don't say that. I sat there, staring at the screen, my ears ringing. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. The man's name was saved as Elliot. Work. A quick search on her company's website confirmed he was a senior manager. When she came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her body, humming like nothing had happened, I couldn't even look at her. I didn't confront her right away. I wish I could say I did. Instead, I spent nights awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe beside me, wondering how long she'd been lying. The breaking point came a week later. She told me she had to stay late again. I followed her. I parked 2 blocks away from her office building and watched as she walked out, her heels clicking against the pavement, her hair down in a way she never wore it for me anymore. She got into an Uber. I tailed it as best I could until it stopped at a hotel on the west side. I watched her meet him outside. He kissed her before they even went in. Something in me shattered. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat the next day. I barely went to work. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. The way she smiled at him. The way she used to smile at me. Finally, I confronted her. "Claire," I said, my voice cold, steady. "How long have you been sleeping with Elliot?" The color drained from her face. "What are you talking about? Don't lie." I threw her phone on the table. The messages were still open. "I know." She stared at me, jaw clenched, then turned away. "Ryan, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." My chest felt like it was caving in. "You've been lying to me for months." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't apologize. "Not at first," she just whispered. "I didn't mean to hurt you. That's all you have to say?" My voice cracked. "You've been sneaking around behind my back and all you can say is you didn't mean to hurt me?" Finally, she broke down. I don't know why I did it. I felt like something was missing. He made me feel alive again. Those words gutted me. Like I wasn't enough. Like the life we'd built together, the dinners, the trips, the nights holding her when she cried meant nothing. I told her to leave. She packed a bag and went to stay with a friend. The days after were the hardest. Walking through our townhouse, every corner reminded me of her. Her mug on the shelf, her sweater draped over the chair, the faint smell of her perfume in the bedroom. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I just kept hearing that word in my head, missing. One night, a week after she left, I woke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy. My first thought was that she'd come back to grab something, but when I called her name, there was no response. I got up, heart pounding, and walked toward the noise. The hall was empty, but the moment I turned back toward the bedroom, I saw something. A shadow. Tall, gaunt. Its head tilted in a way no human head should tilt. It stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching me. I froze. My mouth went dry. "Claire," I whispered, though I knew it wasn't her. The shadow didn't move. Then, slowly, it raised a hand and pointed at me. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my own feet. When I blinked, it was gone. That was the first night. Since then, it's been happening more often. The shadow appears when I'm alone in the kitchen, in the bathroom mirror, standing just outside the window at night, always pointing, always silent. I don't know if it's real, or if it's my mind unraveling from the betrayal. Sometimes I wonder if it's the embodiment of my guilt for not noticing sooner, for not being enough. Other times, I wonder if something darker has latched onto me, feeding on the anger, the heartbreak, the emptiness. I've moved out of the townhouse now. I couldn't stand being there anymore. Claire's gone for good. I heard she moved in with Elliot. Maybe they're happy. Maybe she found what she was missing. But I can't move on. Not really, because no matter where I go, the shadow follows. It waits in the corners of every room. It waits at the foot of my bed when I wake at night. And always, always, it points at me, as if to say, "This is your fault." And maybe, in some twisted way, it is.